Hi everyone on here coming to you with this month's video oh for those that don't know who I am actually the author of the Code Journey here, and this is what this year's edition looks like. I've just actually released the 2027 version, so um, you can look for that on my website, compassioncodes.com, and I've actually released two additional books this year. The Code Journey is celebrating its 10th anniversary of being out. So it's been getting put out for 10 years. And then I've also put out a journal and just a daily sort of inspirational action step book that's very simplified for people who are looking for a less intense um, practice to work with that's still positive and active and provides some growth and things. So that's what I'm doing. And hopefully by the next video that I do, I'll be able to show you the new book because I'm really happy with it. I'm really happy with the way things came out with it. So had some big changes this year and looking forward to sharing that with you. But hey, we're in the video time this month, and I don't want to take too much from that. This month, what I'm talking about is what obviously I have a talking problem today. What slowing things down can do for you. And I think this is really interesting in our world today because our world tends to get very frenzied, very chaotic, very busy with things. And a lot of times people feel that exhaustion and they feel like I don't have time for things. I can't afford to slow down. I've got bills to pay. I've got this to take care of, that to take care of. And they're constantly on the go, just constantly moving from one point to the next point to the next point to the next point. And there's no real breaks. It's just this rush, rush, rush. And the thing is when we do that, we actually experience time in different ways. So if we're doing a lot of rushing around, then we are experiencing time. And I guess I don't really need those in. We're experiencing time in a very rushed way. It can go very fast. We lose track of time. The week is over before it feels like it's even started in some cases, things like that. But when we slow things down and we start to take our pace, a lot of times we'll get this sort of anxiety that feels like, oh, I can't afford to slow down. I can't go this slow. I'll never get anything done type of thing. But what we find is when we take moments for stillness, when we take time out to really just be, to observe, to connect with the world, to appreciate the world around us, to just, again, slow it down. We also actually can do an aspect of creating time, or making time stand still to a little bit. And I find this because I go and spend time in a garden. A lot of times at the end of my day, I'll go walk through the forest, and then the garden that's there, I will sit in it for a while as the sun's coming down and just look around and just be and just sit. And this slowing down is a great way to shift my day. And it feels like there's so much time, like it feels like a lot of time has gone by, and it might only be 30 minutes or 45 minutes of time. But when you do that slowing down, you actually gain a sense of time. And it's not that you're getting more hours in the day, but you're getting yourself out of that frenzy, out of that stress. And when you get out of the frenzy and the stress, then things start to shift for you and it doesn't feel so hectic and it doesn't feel so chaotic. And this is where we actually do have a certain amount of control or power over time in our life. And when we get out of that frenzy and that hectic space, we can actually deal with things better. We can actually see what we can manage, see what we can handle. We catch our breath, we pull the stress and the tension out of our body. The slowing down is a critical thing. We don't want to just be moving through the world in a way that is so rushed that we're not appreciating the world that we're living, that we're not even taking notice to it. When we do that, that's when everything blurs together. Everything starts to lose meaning. Everything starts to just be mundane. And this rushing and not taking time and not slowing down can really influence whether, say, somebody goes into depression or not. Because the more harried, the more busy, the more full somebody's routine is, a lot of times, We can always find things to fill our day, but when we get too full and it gets too much where there's no breaks at all and no time to connect with the world around us, we start getting depressed. We will actually have things that come up that just, we lose that sense of purpose in the world, sense of meaning in life. And so the slowing down actually helps us to reconnect with that. Then the second thing is that we honor natural rhythms. So when we're slowing down, for example, you grab that cup of tea or that coffee or whatever you grab in the morning or the evenings, and you stop and you watch the sunrise and you watch the sunset, or you just take time. You take time to look at the night sky. I mean, we did this a lot in past days. If you go back 100 years, you sat on the porch. The porch was a big thing. And you had this stillness time, you had this slowing down time in your day. And it actually helped people to sleep better when they did that. They come into these natural rhythms. We start to synchronize that chemistry in our brain. We start to synchronize, like with the melatonin starts to regulate in our bodies because it has this winding down period. And then we also get that better rest because we're not going to bed with all the stress and this tension, like I've got to do 20,000 things tomorrow. I've got to keep this, trying to rush through all these lists in our heads and track all of this stuff. So this honoring of natural rhythms comes through. And when we honor the natural rhythms, we also bring in a connection that helps us to connect more with God or divine source. And we enter into divine rhythms as opposed to man-forced rhythms. And that also makes a difference because our bodies will tend to relax, our minds will tend to relax, will tend to ease up in different ways that, again, can make us more efficient when we are doing things. And it aligns us with that spiritual connection. And when that spiritual connection comes in, we can let go of a lot of the tension. We can feel aspects of hope. We can believe that we can get through things. We have the resilience and the ability to deal with things more. So when we don't have that connection, the stress gets higher in there. So these natural rhythms are actually a natural part of connecting us in divine ways. And it's like that comfort. Anybody who takes time, whether it's taking time for meditation or prayer or whatever it is, they understand what I'm talking about with some of these natural rhythms when you're not restricted by a time clock. You start to flow. Everything in your body starts to work more naturally. Your mind starts to flow more naturally. Everything starts to synchronize into those divine rhythms. And that's what we were built to work on. That's what we were built to function on. Not all of this man-made created schedules in there. Taking time to connect with nature and seasonal things. This can be a great way to kind of slow down a little bit. But with nature, we have a natural interconnection with it. So when we're connecting with the seasons, when we're connecting with these natural rhythms, when we are connecting with what nature's doing, we're taking time, like here in the Northeast, to observe the fall foliage, which is quite beautiful. Even regardless of how the temperatures flux or whatever, it's always quite beautiful. The seasonal things, the apples and the cider, as the fall comes in, and cranberries and things like that. Of course, in summer, we have the blueberries, we have strawberries and things like that. But always this connection with nature. And the more we can connect with nature, the more we'll open the natural rhythms up and the natural cycles in our body. Again, in the process of opening this, we naturally increase our health. We naturally strengthen our physical body. We actually stimulate the natural healing processes. We actually clear things in our mind and bring the focus back in. And we bring in, again, that divine connection. And that is because nature, everything that is operating on these natural cycles that is naturally divinely created, has divine connection to it. So every time we're connecting and we're recognizing and acknowledging and aware of the interrelationship that we have with nature, the more we're connecting with God and divine source. So this also kind of creates this clearing, this reset that goes on within us that goes, okay, I can deal with everything now. not so stressed, not so tension, like when I'm dealing with paperwork. Been dealing with a lot of paperwork lately, and oh, I just filled something out earlier today. 2.5 hours, 2.5 hours for one application for something insane. But here I am now going, okay, let's come into those natural rhythms. Let's slow it down. Let's create some videos now. Let's shift gears here. Um, we draw on eternal and divine wisdom. When we align with the natural cycles, when we slow things down, we actually open ourselves up to receive divine wisdom. Our intuition opens up, our pineal gland starts to get activated, our heart center can start to get activated and things. There's a comfort, our solar plexus, where we receive a lot of input and intake from the world. And so we naturally are able to integrate and start to bring in that eternal and that divine wisdom. Well, when we start to receive that, because we're slowing down, we're being in a receptive space, we also bring greater peace. We increase the peace that we have because through that divine wisdom, we will let go of a lot of the worries and the anxieties and the tensions and the stress, and we start to tune into what's really important. These natural rhythms, watching, you see it in animals, cats, dogs, they get fascinated by the bird in the sky. Well, what are they doing? They're aligning to the natural rhythms. They connect, they want to grab onto trees or be up next to trees, and they're trying to connect with nature. So drawing on that when they're doing that connection, or even when they're just pausing and sleeping in the sun, like a lot of them like to do, they're drawing on this eternal wisdom. And I know that probably sounds a little silly to people, but it naturally happens when we allow ourselves to slow down and we allow the busyness to just drain out and we just catch our breath for a while. Um, we also, when we slow down, we start freeing ourselves from schedules and we start taking in more of the moment. And this freeing ourselves from schedules is really important because the more we have to function on schedules, and in this world, and for most people, they have schedules they have to function on. I mean, even I have deadlines. Even as a self-employed person that doesn't technically have schedules, if I have to go present, I'm on a schedule. I still have deadlines with my books to meet, that they've got to be out by certain times in order to be able to be ready for retailers and things like that. But we actually start to take in more of the moment. And when we can free ourselves from these schedules, then we again come into this divine alignment. We come into being able to embrace the moment. If we're so worried about what we got to do next, what time we got to be someplace, where we got to go, um, how it's going to flow, and we're watching the clock, we're not taking in the moment. Our attention is divided and it's distracted. And this is why sometimes when I'm going to meet with somebody and I'm going to get together with a friend or somebody that I know or a connection, I will leave a lot of cushion a lot of times um, in my schedule, and I won't have anything scheduled after seeing them or around them very often if I can avoid it, because I want everything to flow naturally. I want to honor the time. I want to take in the moment. And we can't do that if our mind is distracted by worrying about having to be someplace else or having to get something done or getting off a break and getting back to work. But when we're not at work, when we're not where we have to punch in a time clock, we want to try to again let go of those schedules. Don't put ourselves on such tight, heavy schedules with things. Because all that's doing is creating the stress and the anxiety. And so, again, we bring in this peace, we bring in this comfort, we bring in this calm when we can do that and release that. We want also self-honesty about why we are doing things. When we come in and we start to slow things down, we can start to get real with ourselves. We can start to have some inner dialogues with ourselves. We can start to look at the things that we are doing in life, the things that we are tackling. And this is a good time when we're slowing things down to say, why am I really doing something? When we get in these rush spaces and we're on all these heavy schedules, we don't stop to think why we're doing something. We're just doing it. It's almost very robotic. And we're not paying attention to, am I doing something because it actually holds value, or am I doing something to receive something. What's the purpose? And sometimes, you can say, hey, it's okay. Yeah, like you gotta work sometimes, right? To earn a living to pay for your bills. And that's okay. But a lot of times we fool ourselves. And when we're fooling ourselves in this process, we create the anxiety. We start to get stressed. We start to get tension. We start scheduling things more. Um, and that pulls us out of that self-honesty. So it's got this interesting, intriguing interconnection or interrelationship that goes on with it. But when we're being totally honest with ourselves about why we're doing things, we will again relax into natural rhythms because we'll start to realize maybe I'm scheduling more than I need to. Maybe I'm putting too much into my day. Maybe I'm spending my time doing a lot of things that really hold no value, and I need to spend more time on the things that do hold value, time with friends, time with family, things like this. And I think that's it. We can get very, very self-deceptive in these spaces. So that slowing down allows us to get real with ourselves. I can't count the number of times that people are like, well, this is a good deed. This is a good thing to do. Well, yeah, but then again, why are you doing it? And they'll try to convince themselves and they'll try to convince me that, well, I'm just doing it out of goodness, out of kindness. And I know it's not true. And how do I know that's not true? Because they'll come back a lot of times and they'll say um, something to the effect of, did I do a good job? Am I, what do you think about this? Wasn't this a good thing to do? And when they're starting to do this, what this tells me, I mean, they can lie to me all they want, but you can't really lie to yourself and you can't lie to God or divine source in things. Um, a lot of times they're doing something because they need to be valued in some way. They need to have an acceptance in some ways. They need to know there's a reward for what they're doing. A lot of people will not do something. I would say most people will not do something unless they're receiving something out of what they're doing. And, whether that is money or recognition or fame or fortune or approval or status or value or acceptance or whatever it is. And I think in the spiritual industry, it gets very tricky because people oftentimes think, oh, I'm spiritual. I'm not doing it for anything other than the purest purposes. And I have to laugh at that because I've I've been there. Like I watched Jessie, how many times she could convince herself that she wasn't doing it for something else. But in reality, she was, when you get down to the deeper cores of it, and she was looking at it going, well, um, she was really looking to be approved in some way. She was looking for a validation. And in the spiritual industry, I think in the spiritual arenas, one of the trickier parts is that a lot of people, whether you're talking religious people, spiritual people, new age people, metaphysical people, whatever, they're doing things to receive divine blessings. Like, okay, if I go do these good deeds, then God's going to reward me. That's another thing I hear a lot. Like, do you think I'm going to be rewarded? Do you think that God's going to give me something that I want now because I did this good deed? And, when we start to put it in these terms, we start to realize how silly that is in some ways. And this is an indication, again, that we're not actually doing something for the sake of doing it. We're doing it because we want God to bless us in some way. We want that divine inheritance, so to say. And that all comes, and it all comes in time, but when when we're wondering, are we going to be blessed for this, then we're not really doing it for the purity of the action, are we? And these are tough, tough realities to delve into, and we don't see them until we start to slow down and really give ourselves a chance to get in this honest space with ourselves. And I think that's a big thing. And then we can work on that always to say, okay, well, how do I get to that point? And it's hard because there isn't necessarily a specific format or set of steps or things like that. I think that's the tough thing when we're in spiritual processes. It's not always like it's the specific format or set of steps that is going to get us into a thing. It's about experiencing and it's about being. It's how we are. It's not just about our acts. And, you'll find this in most religions and in spiritual practices. It's not just about the acts you do, it's about being in there. So I think really taking a look at that, that's another one of the gift. If we know God, we know God's going to bless us and then he'll bless us when we need it. We don't have to worry about, am I going to be blessed because I did this action or am I going to get this now? And these are, again, big indicators of where we're not totally in that pure action. And it takes practice and it takes work to just release that wanting because we've been so groomed and so programmed that we don't do anything unless we're receiving something for it. It shows strength of spiritual values and qualities through this process. When we're slowed down, those slow points, when we are quiet and we don't have a busy place to put our attention, this really starts to show where is the strength of our values and our qualities. And when we're coming face to face with the self-honesty, when we're flowing with the rhythms, can we do something season after season? Can we really appreciate things? Do we really see and integrate those spiritual qualities into our life, or are we again just doing them to receive something in some way? Um, there's nothing wrong with admitting that, hey, I'm weak in a certain area. Matter of fact, I just told that to somebody the other day. I said, I'm honest. I'll be honest with you. I'm not good at reaching out to people. It's not my forte. I'm not good about following up with people. I'm not the best person to stay in contact with people. I mean, I'm sure there are people that say, well, that's your introverted nature that you do that and you cherish your private time so much that that you don't tend to reach out. And thank God I have a lot of very uh open people who will constantly reach out and remind me, hey, we haven't had a conversation in a while or something. Um, to that effect. But this is where we do learn, these quieter moments, the slowing down times. This is a great time for self-reflection and to look at it and say, okay, what can I work on? And there always is. It doesn't matter how many decades you've been on your path, your processes, what you're doing, or how much you've worked on something. There's always room for improvement on things. And I think that's it, is to not, again, get into that arrogance. Well, I've already mastered this and I've mastered that. And I think it's something I see in a lot of people, particularly in the spiritual arenas. But this really helps us to tune in to building even our strengths and our values. When we slow down, we can really connect with them and see where we're at. And I think also it's an opportunity to bring hope in when we're frustrated with the pace of things in particular. And again, today we have more happening in a day or a week or a month than we used to have like in a year. We think about how much is accomplished and we've just adapted and gotten used to it. And it's always this more and more. And we've been in this gradual speeding up. And I would say, especially since the year 2000. But I saw it happening before that, where it's just more and more and more and more is being put in the day. And the more electronics and technology that comes into play, the more that is happening in a day. Things are being processed faster, things are going through systems faster, and more things can be done. But then that also puts that pressure on us to do more in there. So when we're slowing down, we start to restore our hope. And that's a huge thing, especially in these days when we get stressed, we get anxious about things, we get tensions and worries and wondering how to deal with things. And the pace is just going, going, going. And we feel like I don't have time to enjoy things or whatever the case is. I don't have time for family, or I don't have time for this, or I don't have time for me, or everything's moving so fast. I'm struggling to keep on top of it. I think that's a common thing I hear as well. But when we slow down, we start to restore that hope, especially where we're frustrated with the pace, especially where we're frustrated with things. I know of some people that started it up, I don't know, a couple of years ago, where they just take time at the end of every day and they sit, they have, a great place, lakeside, and they just take time to do that reflection, to be still every day. And they went through some very hard things to get them to do that. I remember some of those hard things that they were going through. And, you know, I look at that now and it's part of what made me start making the time. Yes, I still have days that I work late, like today's probably going to be one of those, but I do try every day to take some time to just decompress a little bit, just slow everything down. Take that deep breath. And so I'm encouraging now for you to get your own experiences in what it's like when you slow things down. Stop rushing, stop pushing, stop forcing, stop pressuring, and pull yourself out of the schedules. Let yourself go into natural rhythms. When you're tired, let your body sleep a little bit more. If you want to go to bed earlier, go to bed earlier. It is natural when winter comes along to want to sleep more. It is natural when summer is here to want to be more active, to do things later in the day. Riding with these seasons keep us divinely connected. They keep us in divine rhythms and flows. And the more we do that, the more we're going to be supported and helped out and in that alignment where we can create flow in our lives and we can get the stress and we can get the pressure off of you. So I encourage you to get these experiences by slowing down, honor it, try it, practice it, and let yourself find out about the hope and the peace that get restored when you do that. Take care, everybody. Again, check out the new book. The links are up on my website, compassioncodes.com. Check out the new books. Make sure you get the link for the book that you want. And if you're wondering what the content is kind of like, again, I've changed it up in 2027, so it's going to be a little different, but the ebook is free. You can go in and you can find the links to that. It's free. Right now for 2026, if you, again, actually, it's not free. It will be free soon. It'll be free next month. I'm sorry, I'm jumping ahead of myself. I forgot we're still in August. But the price is reduced. How's that? If you want to check it out and see what the content is like in there, it'll be going free around the autumn equinox for the ebook only in there. But check it out and see, if you'd like to be on the journey with me and do this work because there's a lot of things we can do in life to make it much more enjoyable. And this isn't dependent on the resources you have or the wealth you have or how much you can do. It's just dependent on your will and your desire to be and to exist and to live. And that isn't all about doing things. It's about becoming and being and existing as what you already are, a beautiful, wonderful, shining light. Take care, and I'll see you next month.